We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds, and this is a major function of the CIA.
Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.
Welcome back to Notify America. We have multiple pressing stories to get to, stories that include a major escalation in the Middle East between the United States and Iran, also an update on the border crisis and capitulation by the president saying, I'll secure the border, I'll reinstitute some of Trump's policies on one condition. Wait till you hear what he wants in return. Also, Nikki Haley shows her true colors, coming out, calling on Biden to retaliate against Iran. We have the video. We also have an update from the border, like we said, in a jaw-dropping clip from CNN that you need to see, you're going to want to see, that shows how low corporate media has fallen, while also calling out Kamala Harris to her face at the same time. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps me out. And make sure to subscribe to the channel to continue receiving these daily updates. Late on Friday evening, a UAV drone attack led to the unfortunate death of 3 U.S. service members and around 40 or so others who were wounded. We don't have the official totals yet. Originally, CENTCOM came out and said that 25 people were injured. Now that number looks to be even higher. The attack was carried out by Iranian-backed forces against the Tower 22 Patrol and Operations Base in northeastern Jordan along the Syrian river, or along the Syrian border rather. The president released this statement yesterday, laying the blame squarely on Iran, writing, quote, "We know it was carried out by radical Iran-backed militant groups operating in Syria and Iraq, and have no doubt we will hold those responsible to account at a time and in a manner of our choosing," unquote. Now, only Americans appear to be targeted in the attack. Jordan says none of the injuries include Jordanians. Well, this is major news, folks. This is a major escalation. The Pentagon came out, released a statement saying as much. Iran is vehemently denying responsibility for the attack, yet the White House says a significant military response is coming. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre this morning, clearly over her head. Watch this.
What I will say, obviously our deepest condolences go out, and our heartfelt condolences go out to the families who lost three folks who are military folks, who are brave, who are always fighting, who are fighting on behalf of this administration, of the American people.
Now, this comes after years of the Biden administration carrying Tehran's water, reversing most of the Trump team's policies that were in place to weaken Iran and move forward to come to a new agreement, a new nuclear agreement. Well, yesterday, the president, vice president met with top advisors, a Secretary of Defense, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan was there, all together to game out what to do next. So we have Grandpa Joe sitting at the head of the table, being presented with recommendations and retaliatory scenarios, everyone looking at the president to make a decision, to give the order, which in and of itself is a frightening thought. Now, this all comes because of our Middle East foreign policy. We have had years-long occupation in Syria. The government won't tell us why. Trump tried to pull out of Syria. His bureaucracy delayed and delayed until finally the election came, and we still were there. Joe Biden also wanted to do the same thing, and again, we're still there. In the oil-rich area, by the way, of the country, northeastern Syria, war hawks in Washington are now jumping out of their seats, demanding regime change in Syria. We have Lindsey Graham coming out within minutes of the news saying that we should hit Iran, he said, and hit them hard, something I'm sure he thinks about often. And we also have Nikki Haley coming out this morning on CNBC and letting her true colors fly. Watch this.
With Iran, we saw him do it with Afghanistan. We're seeing him do it with Russia and Ukraine. You have to be tough. That doesn't mean starting a war. That actually means preventing war. But when countries see that you're tough and you're serious, they back off. By nature, they back off. Iran knows they can't beat America. They've always known that. But as long as they smell blood in the water, they're going to keep doing this.
Now, we know that Nikki Haley left the Trump administration to go work for Boeing. and has had other weapons companies and contractors donating to her campaign. So at least she's transparent with the American people. We all know what we get from a Haley administration. But the bottom line is, this was a major escalation. The situation is delicate. Could easily be the spark that erupts into a full regional war, even a world war. As crazy as it sounds. And the decision now rests with Joe Biden. May the Lord help us. In another story, CNN interviewed Vice President Kamala Harris the other day, and the reporter demonstrates how low media has fallen in this country. Utter bootlicking. That's what it was. Bootlicking to the Biden administration. Watch this.
Let me ask you one more question. I'm struck just in your presence. I was watching you on stage, watching the reactions from the crowd. Mm-hmm.
I'm struck at your presence. How do you stoop so low? You're supposed to be holding power to account, not groveling at the feet of CNN. Can't believe it took me a week to see this. But she goes on to ask her about her unpopularity. That was her way of asking her, a roundabout way of asking her how little Americans like her, by saying, I'm struck at your presence. Watch the rest of the clip.
Let me ask you one more question. I'm struck just in your presence. I was watching you on stage, watching the reactions from the crowd, mm-hmm. looking you in the eye with your passion that you were displaying and talking about so many issues. And yet you hear candidates suggesting that a vote for President Biden because of his age is somehow a vote for you. And that is hurled as an insult. It's intended to demonstrate some negative viewpoint towards you. What is your reaction to this thought that with your background in particular, with your career, that there is some thought that you are incapable?
So what she's getting at is just how unpopular Kamala Harris really is. Look, there's new 2024 favorability numbers for Kamala. She's very unpopular. Look at this. Very unfavorable. 42%. She's the most unpopular VP ever in history. More unpopular than Joe Biden is. And that's saying something. In another story, squad member Congresswoman Ilhan Omar comes out at a speaking event and basically says she's Somalia first, not America first. Realize she's an American congresswoman, not a Somalian congresswoman. She's supposed to be representing Americans, not Somalians. She says she's working inside the system to protect Somalia. You can decide for yourself if you think this is what an American congressperson should be doing or not. Watch.
Annaga haddii aan nahay dad Soomaali ah, waxaan nahay dad isjecel. Waa laga yaabaa meelaha qaarkood inaan isku xagxaganno, laakiin haddii runtii ay imaato waxaan nahay dad isku tashto, dad walaalo ah, dad dhiig lah, dad isku og inay Soomaali yihiin, inay Muslim yihiin, oo iyagana isku hiiliya, dadka walaalahoodna u hiiliya. Marka daraad markii ayaan dhexdaas markii aan maqalnay in qaar Soomaali ah ama Soomaali sheegato in Ethiopia ay la galeen ma baqaan af Soomaali wixii lagu dhaho agreement heshiis Maxamuud Nuur hadda aniga Soomaaliga badiyo soo ceeb ma aha dad badan ay soo wacay oo waxay leeyihiin Ilhan dawladda Mareykanka inaan la hadashid waaye dawladda Mareykanka maxay ka qabanaysaa jawaabteedu waxay ahayd dawladda Mareykanka waxay ka qabanaysaa wixii annaga aan dhahno dawladda Mareykanka qabo waa kalsoonidaas inaan isku qabno annaga Soomaali hadii aan nahay wadankan annaga ku nool wadankan wadankii aan annaga tax ka dhiibno waaye waa wadankii gabar idinka dhalatayne ee Congress ka fadhiso intii aniga aan Congress joogo wadanka Soomaaliya biyaheeda dad kaleeta iyo badeeda dad kale ma qaadanayaan wadanka Mareykankana kuma taageerayo dad kaleeta in annaga ayna dhacaan marka taas ka seexda reer Minnesota gabadhii Congress u dirsateen way idinka war haysaa sidaad idinka u dareemaysiin dantaas ay u dareemeen madaxweyne Xasan Sheekhna waxaan leeyahay waan kugu faraxsannahay shaqada fiican aad qabatay.
In another story, the Biden administration is now giving Republicans an ultimatum. If you want us to secure the border, reinstate some of Trump's border policies, we'll do that, but only if you agree to fund military support for Ukraine, Taiwan, and Israel. Because remember, this border deal isn't needed, and it's dead in the water. There's no way it gets passed with the current language, that 5,000 person daily threshold, and it's not required anyways. The border can be secured. We saw how easily the president can do that when Trump was in office. He instituted the Remain in Mexico policy that forced asylum seekers to wait for their court date in Mexico or their home country, effectively solving the problem overnight. Now, would it be nice to pass a new bill that includes immediate deportation codified into law? Yes, that'd be great. That's the end-all solution, but Democrats clearly won't agree to that. The only way to do that is to have a large Republican majority in both chambers. So in the interim, the responsibility rests with the commander-in-chief, who seems to show no concern for what's happening at the border. In another story, the largest NATO exercises in its history to practice how to defend against a Russian attack on Europe has just began. The military exercises are scheduled to run through the end of May, named Exercise Steadfast Defender 24, with some 90,000 troops from all 31 NATO member states are participating in this. Now, this comes after Sweden is about to formally enter the alliance, something that further escalates tensions with Vladimir Putin, as Sweden is only one country away from its border. So with the US managing 2 proxy wars right now, on the verge of going to war with Iran possibly, how would it be able to manage if Russia really did decide to attack Europe, or what to do if China decides to take Taiwan? All scenarios that appear to not even be on the president's radar. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.